a threat, both to the issue of independence and the question of integrity of both the civil services and the armed forces? I would say the answer is a very, very clear and an unambiguous yes. Whether this has been purely created by the current dispensation, I think is something that one needs to examine a little more clearly. Because if we don't do that, the tendency is to take a somewhat superficial view and to blame only the current dispensation. I think they have a lot to answer for. But if we are looking at the erosion of both independence, integrity, the completely secular values in which, particularly the armed forces, which I know a lot better, I would say that this erosion, this undermining, and as I said, the subversion of these values which are enshrined in the Constitution, that has begun a long time ago. And I think that various political regimes have had a role to play. And I think we would be very hasty in just blaming the one. This has been the way, the road to this has been paved by what has also happened before. And I think if there is a threat, I would say the threat is to the Constitution of India, from where a lot of these values, as far as I'm concerned, have been derived. I mean, I would say that there is a lot to be concerned about, and I think that the stage that we have reached today is particularly alarming. It's gone beyond the stage of just being a worry, because I think that the very institutions that you are talking about have been systematically weakened. I think they were put in place by the Constitution, which a number of speakers have referred to. They have also referred to those provisions of that Constitution, which perhaps incorporated, integrated, and sort of gathered together some of the best provisions in terms of a Constitution from across the world. I think the fundamentals of that Constitution did talk about fraternity. It talked about internal cohesion. It talked about the unity of all the various, whether it's religion, language, ethnicities, gender, and so on. And I think that there is no doubt in my mind that what we are seeing, certainly in the last 4 years, in a very, very exaggerated, coordinated, and therefore that much more dangerous fashion, is that there is an attack which has been planned probably 70, 90 years ago. And let me not mince my words, it has been planned by an extremist religious organization which has called itself a cultural organization, but it is political. And therefore that political agenda is being played out by playing on the emotions of large numbers, particularly of the majority community. So I think that the selection of people who head these institutions plays a very major role, whether it's a vice chancellor of a JNU or whether it is the Lalita Kalas and the other academies and so on, whether it is in the judiciary, whether in fact it is in the armed forces or any of the senior positions of the civil services. I think people with a broader, more, shall we say, secular, for lack of another word, mindset are being weeded out systematically. And I think that they are being replaced by people who adhere to a particular ideology. And that worries me. What worries me even more is that the way they are choosing to do this is through the instrument of education. And I think that this is where we have, all of us, I've been in the field of community organization and education and NGOs and all the rest of it for, well, 4 decades now. We began many years ago really by focusing on kids and building a very different set of values, looking at democracy, what are their roles as citizens, and I think building a very strong focus on integration, on tolerance, whereas today we are seeing the complete obverse of that. And I think that what I was telling someone, it will need us to go back to the fundamentals and maybe say 2 generations of work on the ground with kids in the bastis, with kids in the KG schools, with kids in the super duper, elite schools. Because this philosophy, this ideology has spread its tentacles everywhere. And I particularly am concerned because I am a product, my father was in the armed forces, my husband has been and is retired from the armed forces. We used to pride ourselves on the fact that we were one of the services where there was a complete belief in a secular, tolerant, integrative kind of a set of values. Today, that has changed frighteningly, and we are seeing people at the highest levels who have been sort of contaminated by the viral of a very, very fiercely ugly, intolerant, as I said, an ideology which exploits your religious sentiments in a very, as I said, in a very deliberately thought through manner, whether it's the love jihads or the cow, the people who have been lynched because of being on suspicions that they are dealing with the cow, whatever it is. This was not India. And this was not the India that we were brought up with. So I think that has got to be what we have to attack. And I think these conclaves are doing, well, we're a huge, mighty ocean. But I believe that every drop counts. And I think these are going to contribute to that.